the neighborhood movie nerd, back to give you guys everything that is going on in the world of movies and TV. And I'm back for my part 2 of my September review extravaganza. And we're kicking it off with The Devil All the Time.
How and why people from 2 points on a map without even a straight line between them can be connected.
This movie is from director Antonio Campos, who previously did 2016's underrated classic Christine. And for his next film, he's taking the Pulp Fiction ensemble route. Based off of a book by Donald Ray Pollack, The Devil All the Time follows a group of people in the backwoods of Ohio a few years after World War II. His movie is a generational story about how the sins of the past can affect those of the future. And it's one of those movies where, unlike I'm Thinking of Ending Things, everything that is set up eventually comes around and is resolved. Guys, this is another sprawling cast of talented actors. You've got Tom Holland leading the batch. You've got Robert Pattinson, Eliza Scanlen, Waisikowska, Haley Bennett, Bill Skarsgård, Harry Melling, Jason Clarke, Riley Keough. The list keeps on going. And people, I can't believe I'm saying this, not only did we get an actual freaking movie from Netflix, but we got an ensemble cast that is actually used to a T. Like, every single actor, every single character in this movie is used for an effective purpose. And the plot, while disturbing, is an interesting one at that. It's got so many intricate little plot details that I can't really delve into specifics without getting too spoilery. But the one thing I will say that is interesting about this movie is that it is very much concerned with people, specifically people who don't have that much education, kind of turn to religion as a way to absolve them of their sins. The only problem is that in this case, it's some of the worst people imaginable trying to find atonement through religion. In a way, kind of playing into the hypocrisy of Catholicism in general. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. The tone of this is Coen Brothers meets Scott Cooper, and this film was actually interested in taking this story and really using it to explore different themes and identities of some vastly different people who are all seemingly connected in some way. It's a slow burn, and it's a movie that I can certainly see pissing off a few people, but I think that if you really pay attention to the closer minor details, I think you could really get something out of this movie. Or if not, just to enjoy it for its sprawling cast of characters and increasingly further and further dark subject matters. It's a movie that I didn't think we were going to get in 2020, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad movies like this that are able to exist. And again, back to Netflix, who clearly owns everything. They allowed for this movie to exist. I firmly enjoyed this movie. One of the few hidden gems within the year of 2020. I'm giving this movie 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Wives suggested couples therapy. Do you think that this is what they had in mind?
Definitely. I mean, we're a couple of couples, right?
Bill and Ted Face the Music. Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan are back to once again go on a time-traveling quest, save the future with the power of their music, and overall have a great and excellent time of being excellent to one another and partying on. So similar to Bad Boys for Life earlier this year, I watched the first 2 Bill and Ted movies for the first time ever before I went into this movie. And there is, without a doubt, a formula here. Bill and Ted are having a current crisis, they're approached by figures from the future, they need to go on a time-traveling quest, and by the end, they usually cheat a little in order to get their way. But the one thing I will say is that, surprisingly enough, with how long it took for this film to get made and how much of a time difference there was between the last movie and this movie, and despite the, obviously clear age difference because Alex S. Winter and Keanu Reeves are both in their 50s now, it really does feel like no time has passed. Because anybody who's a Bill and Ted fan is going to absolutely love this movie. The hijinks are still there. They managed to find a way to pay homage to both Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. The characters, the cameos, it really is the best of all worlds. The one new thing that they introduced in this movie is the idea that basically their lineage is continuing through their kids who are basically carbon copies of them. And I kind of love how Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne go out of their way in order to basically impersonate them. That part was actually really funny to me. Bridget Lundy Payne in particular does a scarily good impression of Keanu Reeves. And I will say, as far as the future technology goes, that stuff looks really freaking good. Obviously, there's a lot more CGI and technicals involved than there was back in 89 and 91, but still. They even managed to find a way to pay homage to George Carlin in a great, respectable way. Look, the only thing that I can say about this movie is pretty much the exact same thing that I would say about Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. It's an absolute blast. It's a fun time. It's nice, chilled, and relaxed. And if you get irritated by these 2 characters and the way they speak, well, then what the hell are you doing watching these movies? For somebody who very much enjoyed Excellent Adventure and thought that Bogus Journey was just okay, this movie was a very fitting wrap-up to the adventure of Bill and Ted. It's a nice reprieve from the depressing misery of 2020, and I give this movie 4 stars.
You look like you seen a gorgeous black ghost. Some post-Jordan Peele era horror movie progress.
The Babysitter. Killer Queen. So, quick brief history that I have with both of these movies now. First movie I watched just randomly on a weekend when I was up at Oswego in my first semester there, and it was something that I was not at all expecting to be as ridiculous, as outrageous, and quite frankly, as stupid as it was. Bunch of teens clustered in a house, one of whom is babysitting this one kid who is clearly madly in love with his babysitter, finds out that they're all part of a demonic cult, and it devolves into a mindless slasher where he kills them all in the most ridiculous of ways possible. Cut to this movie 2 years later, and it's already starting off with something almost completely unbelievable, with the idea that apparently because there was no bodies found, everyone thinks that he's crazy and made it all up. But again, the one thing that I will give these movies is that as bad as both of these movies are, they know exactly what type of movie they are. These movies are directed by McG, who, needless to say, has not had the best of track record. Just look at Terminator Salvation and This Means War, for example. But the thing that I admire about him is that when he gets a project where he knows exactly what it is that he's going for, he goes for it. And that is the one thing that I will say is that every single actor, every single character in this knows exactly what kind of a movie this is. They're not trying to make this anything special. They're not trying to have this be particularly deep or anything. And they don't flub when it comes to the outrageousness. When they get outrageous, they get outrageous. The kills are absolutely ridiculous. Whenever somebody dies, blood gets splattered all over their face. And I give this one kind of more props than the first one because the first one, as ridiculous as it was, it really had to test the waters. But this one just went all out, like gave no Fs. Pretty much the entire cast from the last one has returned, which is actually kind of surprising. Judah Lewis is back as the main kid. The 5 kids who tried to kill him in the last one, they're back too, portrayed once again by Samara Weaving, Bella Thorne, Robbie Amell, Hannah Mae Lee, and the always mugging Andrew King Bach Bachelor, who's arguably mugging even more so than he did in the last one. But at the very least, I think he's actually got some funnier, slightly more intelligent one-liners. Not to mention the fact that he's the last one to get axed off as opposed to last time where he was the first one to get axed off.
That's some post-Jordan Peele era horror movie progress.
My one only problem with this movie, and again, this is a slight thing, because again, my relationship with these movies are very hit or miss, but my one slight problem is that they took arguably probably my favorite character from the last movie, that being just the girl next door, who they were very clearly setting up to be a romantic foil, portrayed by Emily Allen Lind, I believe is the actress's name, and they turn her into the bad guy. And I'm not saying it's a bad choice, I'm just saying it kind of broke my heart because I really, really liked that character. She was really endearing and sweet. Not to mention the fact that they just replaced her with this other character who is one of those characters that is clearly only there for the main character to sleep with. I'm not even saying that to be like facetious or anything. They literally make that a plot point. Yeah, the Babysitter Killer Queen. It's nothing amazing. But it knows exactly what it's going to be. And if you want something to just not take seriously at all, have an absolutely outrageous time with in a way that really does to me, I think. Again, I think that's another reason why these movies are such a special place in my heart, is because these movies to me do everything that more generic slasher movies don't. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's nothing great, but it's similar to Bill and Ted. If you want something to just chill on a Friday night with and have an absolute blast with your friends about, then I 100% recommend this movie. 3.5 out of 5 stars. Antebellum, and goddamn, does this movie have one brass set of balls. It's really funny because going into this movie, I really did have no idea what to expect. Actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I sort of had an idea what to expect. But this is probably the first time, at least for the year of 2020, that I've seen where the trailer completely misdirected me. Because the trailer is actually really vague. The only thing that it really tells you is that the main character seems to be time hopping between modern day and obviously middle 1800s Civil War era. And let me tell you something. This movie pulled one over on me because, boy, was it not at all involving time travel. So it's really confusing to even explain the plot because I don't even really know where to begin without kind of spoiling it. Basically, the idea is that Janelle Monáe portrays this woman named Veronica, who for the first third of the movie is, unfortunately, a slave on a plantation in what appears to be the Civil War era South. And you're following that, again, extremely tragic and depressing storyline for about the first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie. Then after the first act is done, it completely switches and you're following now the same character in the modern day, and the two don't really seem to connect at first. There's no time hopping, there's no nothing. And for a while, you're sitting there wondering, even though the movie is kind of dropping subtle hints, you're wondering what the hell is going on. Here's what I will say. As far as, you know, setting the time period right and also playing it out for what it should be, at least for that setting, a freaking horror movie, just once again seeing just the awful, awful things that America has done in its past. But then it gets to the third act, and we get the twist. And I'm not gonna spoil what it is, because I don't want to ruin this experience for everyone, because I think everyone should go into this with an open mind. But the one thing that I will say is that for my money, I did not at all like where this went. Because it's one of those twists where the minute the curtain gets pulled back, it's shocking in the moment. And it's certainly, again, I give this film a lot of props and I give these creators a lot of props for having the balls to try and actually pull this off. Because it is one of those twists that completely radicalizes and changes the movie from one thing to another. Not to mention making what seem to be two very disconnected storylines all of a sudden connect. The problem is that it's another one of those infamous twists where the minute that you start to think about it, the whole movie falls apart. Because aside from, to me, reinforcing very negative and frankly untrue things about the current political state in this country, it also just makes the logistics of it also just make no fucking sense. twist. The best thing that I can compare it to as far as other movies with which to reference it to give you guys kind of an idea of what I'm talking about, it's basically Get Out meets The Village. The acting is great, the cinematography is great, and the setup, and again, the initial idea for it is an interesting one. But for where it goes and for how the twist pays off and for what it ultimately, I think, is trying to say, this movie, in terms of Double Toasted, is a blatant somewhere between some old bullshit and just a straight up fuck you. Because not only was it one of those movies where I was able to guess the twist before it actually happened, but when I did, I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. But again, not gonna spoil anything because I don't want to soil this movie for you guys, for anyone that does go in and actually does think that this is a clever twist. If you do, props on you. You clearly saw something that I did. For my money, it completely tanked the movie, which for the most part was a compelling one at that, I will say. But because of the twist and ultimately because it tanked the movie, I only give this movie 2 out of 5 stars.
All right, people, that is it. Those were all of my reviews for the month of November. What did you guys think? Whatever you did think, leave the comments in the comment section below. Make sure you also click the like button and that subscribe button and that little bell next to the subscribe button. That way you get notified every time we put up some new content. We have new content that we put up every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Follow us on all of our social medias, that being Facebook and Instagram at Talkin TV Podcast. And as always, people, watch more fucking movies.